All right, today we're diving into some of the smallest words in the English language, but words that can have a massive impact in a courtroom. We're talking about prepositions at law. So, think about this. Could just one tiny word, a word you use all the time without even thinking, like of, for, or to, could that really change the course of justice? Well, as we're about to find out, the answer is a huge, resounding yes. This quote really gets to the heart of it. It says, every area of English has its own specialist use of prepositions. Law is no exception. And that's so true. In the legal world, language isn't just about getting your point across. It's like a super precise instrument where every single piece has a very specific job to do.
Okay, theory is one thing, but let's put it into practice, right? It's time for a little challenge to put your legal English to the test. You ready? Let's do this.
First one up, to accuse someone blank something. In criminal law, this phrase is where it all begins. So what's the missing word? It's of. You accuse someone of a crime.
Okay, let's keep it rolling. How about this one? To be liable blank something. When you're talking about who's responsible, one preposition does all the heavy lifting. And that word is for. You are liable for the damages.
How are you doing so far? Couple more to go. Let's try this. To sentence someone blank a punishment. What goes in the blank? The correct word here is to. A judge sentences someone to 10 years in prison.
Next up, let's jump over to civil law. The phrase is to claim damages blank something. So when you're asking for compensation, you claim damages what? You claim them for an injury or a loss. And that leads us right into the next one. To be entitled blank compensation. So, after the court sides with you, you are officially entitled to that compensation.
Okay, here's a phrase that really kicks the whole legal process off. To bring a case blank someone. You can feel the conflict in this one, can't you? You bring a case against another person or company.
We're almost at the end, so when the verdict is finally delivered, a person is found to be guilty blank an offense. The little word that makes that crucial link is of. You are guilty of an offense.
And for our last one, to find someone blank something. Since a fine is a penalty for an action, the preposition you need is, you guessed it, for. A judge finds someone for their behavior. Awesome job! You've just run through some of the most critical phrases in all of legal English.
So, it's one thing to see these phrases in a list, right? But how do they actually come together to tell a real story in a legal case? Well, let's step inside the courtroom and see them in action.
Okay, first up, let's open case file number 1. This is a criminal case, The People versus Mary Phillips. Let's watch how these little prepositions we just learned actually build the narrative of her case.
So you can see the whole story unfold right here. It starts when the prosecutor accused Phillips of disorderly behavior. Then the magistrate decided she was guilty of the charge. Now, thankfully for her, she wasn't sentenced to prison. Instead, the magistrate fined her for her behavior. See that? Each of those prepositions, of, to, for, marks a very clear and distinct step in the legal process. All right, let's switch gears now and move from criminal court over to civil court. Case file number 2 is Peters versus his employer, and this one is all about who's responsible and who has to pay.
So in this case, John Peters is the one who kicked things off. He brought a case against his employer. Why? Because he was claiming damages for a really serious injury he got at work. The judge looked at the evidence and decided the employer was liable for the injury. And that little word "for" is what pins the financial responsibility on them. The final outcome? The court ruled that Peters was entitled to a significant amount of money in damages.
So we've seen how these prepositions aren't just grammar. They're the building blocks of an entire legal outcome. They stitch the whole story together. So that brings us to the big question. Why does this all matter so much? Why is this level of precision so critical?
Well, here's the bottom line. In law, precision is absolutely everything. These tiny little words do a huge job. Their main purpose is to get rid of any and all ambiguity. They define who is responsible for what with total clarity. And by doing that, they make sure that judgments, contracts, and, the very ideas of fairness and justice are upheld. And here's a final little linguistic nugget for you. Think back to Mary Phillips' case, right? She was accused of disorderly behavior. Now, I don't know about you, but I was always taught that words ending in ly are adverbs. But here's the twist. In a legal context, disorderly is actually an adjective. It's just another perfect little example of how legal English really plays by its own very precise set of rules.
So if one tiny preposition can hold the power to define guilt, liability, and even justice itself, it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other hidden rules of language are out there, quietly shaping our world in ways we never even notice?